Hello. We are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So I think we're all working here together. If we've never met before, I'm Kelly. I'm one of the coaches at Zenny Me. And today we're talking about burnout or trauma. Hey, Robin, good to see you. It's something we've been seeing a lot in our coaching with our boot campers and with our coaching clients. That here we are about to round the corner into 2022, and more therapists are feeling burned out. But we think it's more than burnout. A lot of you have been through some major trauma. And in addition to your own trauma of going through this pandemic and having your own personal losses, we also have the vicarious trauma of ushering our clients through the same trauma that we are experiencing. And chronically, it wasn't just some one-time event. It's been going on for over a year now. And what has that done to us as clinicians? And I don't know if you've seen the ads for our upcoming webinar, our free training that we're going to be doing next month. Actually, it'll be next week, on burnout and trauma. It was interesting that some people have responded and said, you shouldn't be doing therapy if you are in the midst of burnout or a traumatic response. If you're completely dissociated and cannot be present with a human being, okay. But really, it's this kind of shaming that keeps us as a community from really talking about what is really going on amongst us as clinicians and what we need in order to move through it. And we aren't saying rush through or just get over something. We're talking about really leaning in and looking at what is going on for us collectively and individually, and what can be done to grow from this experience and heal from it. One of the things that we're going to be talking about in the webinar coming up is the different traumatic responses that we can have, right? And I can never say them quickly, so I'm going to say them very slowly. We have the freeze response where we just hold. We just hold with what we're doing. We don't change anything. And what that can look like as a private practice owner is we haven't adjusted our schedules. We haven't adjusted our caseloads. We haven't adjusted our fees in response to how our needs have changed as we go through something very traumatic, right? And I think the act of sitting with someone who's experiencing the same trauma as you has a greater emotional toll than if you have had that similar trauma, but you have healed from it, or you're further down the road and you're healing from it. But when it's co-occurring like that, it's so dynamic and so strong. It can cause some of us to freeze and just kind of hold because we don't want anything to change. Enough has already changed. And then another response is that whole fawn response, right? People pleasing, the lowering the fees, the accommodating all the schedules. In fact, today in one of our programs, a client of ours was saying, I allowed people to go to biweekly, and I'm noticing the outcomes dropping when I knew that weekly is what I do well, and that's where I get the best outcomes. Why didn't I hold to that? Well, because one of our responses in a trauma is to please. Right? And so now having to go back through and think through what are the boundaries that I need to be putting in place in order to manage this traumatic response, right? So if we go from the freeze to fawn to flight, see, I can't, all these F's, right? We're looking for an escape hatch. We're trying to, change what we do, become a coach, offer a course, sell a book, do anything other than what you've already created, right? That I just want to run away from this. We've talked to a lot of people over the past few months, and some of them are saying, I'm just tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm thinking about just getting a job. So that's one of the other responses. And then we have the fight, the person who's constantly frustrated, that's angry, that's lashing out on social media in a way that just to discharge some of the pent up frustration and undealt emotions. So we all are having one of these responses to the trauma that we're going through, and it's impacting our business, and there are things we can do in our business to shift it. And that's what we want to talk about in this upcoming training, because I think we're past like burnout. Burnout is when the root is in the system of the work, right? So you could say that if your work alone is causing burnout and everywhere else that is not impacted, okay, maybe that's burnout. But this is trauma. This is something you're facing in your work, outside your work, and everywhere else. So whether it is burnout or trauma, those trauma responses do come up, and we see it displayed in our businesses. And what we want to help you with is to really understand, how do I shift from this freeze, fawn, flight, or fight state and into a little higher energy state where that shadow isn't overtaking us, and that we can start making some shifts to accommodate, to allow room and breath for healing. But when we are stuck in one of those trauma response states, we lose sight of our options and creativity. And our hope is that in this training that you start to see and open up to some of the possibilities and options that you have. So many of you are exhausted. So many of you are tired. So many of you want to run away. You're feeling rage. You don't know what to do next. And that's where we want to really meet you where you're at. It's normal, but we've got to talk about this stuff. And it's not a bubble bath. It's not just meditation alone that's going to get you there. It's really understanding the self, your trauma responses, and how to move through them, and how those responses are impacting you as a clinician and in the rest of your life as well. So we'd love to have you join us for this training that's coming up. But before that, I want to see below. Just comment wherever you're watching this, because it's in multiple places. Are you in a freeze, a fawn, a flight, or a fight mode? Where would you say that you land in your trauma response as you are facing this? And it's still going on for many of you. I saw some posts of therapists who have not only faced losses with their clients, they've lost their clients. They've lost family. They've lost friends. More death than the heart can bear. More loss than our heart can bear, right? So where are you? Are you in the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze? We want to see, where do you think you land? And if you're coming to this training, awesome. We'd love for you to invite someone. We want this to be impactful in our communities. We want other therapists that we've never met before to learn about what we see happening and helping them make a shift. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week. Come on next week live probably too and say hello. I hope that you have a wonderful Monday as we come back from a holiday here in the U.S. So much to be grateful for, and still so much to acknowledge, so much pain to acknowledge and work through too. So we'll see you next week.